Hi, welcome to another episode of In the Garden with Margie. Today, what I'm going to do is share with you the best tip I have ever learned about how to have a garden without weeds and without walking in a lot of mud. No matter what size your garden, the last thing you want to do is be pulling tons of weeds and walking in mud. This walkway might look just fine right now, but when we start watering, or especially when we get our summer rains, it'll turn into a muddy mess, turning the visits to the garden into more of an unwelcome adventure. I'm going to share the best tip I've ever learned about how to prevent such adventures during the growing season. We've already prepared the walkways between each raised bed, and the walkways should be wide enough for you to easily navigate. Remember that some plants will get quite big, so although a foot wide may seem plenty, if you have the room, go wider even. We next bought a couple bales of hay. In previous years, we've used newspaper, but we read a suggestion about using cardboard, so this year we're going to try that. I'm not sure I'm convinced that cardboard is better, but we've got a lot more of that than newspaper, so this year it'll be a test. Now, I will warn you, though, that while you're putting the straw over the cardboard until you wet it down, it can be extremely slippery. I fell, I know. Now, the reason for either cardboard or newspaper is it presents a stronger barrier to weeds as the straw pounds down through the season. Now, you can experiment with just straw too, though. We first cut up the cardboard and had newspaper at hand. Then I lined up the walkways with all the cardboard that I had. I made a point to use the cardboard at the entry of the garden and the main walkway, and then use the rest for some of the side pathways. For the rest of it, I used the newspaper that we had on hand. I then covered up the cardboard and newspaper with the straw. Now, I will give you a little tip. If you have any wind at all, the newspaper isn't going to sit nicely in place. So find something to put on it while you lay it out. I generally will take a little bit of that straw and throw it on each section. Now, you see the newspaper in this picture lying quietly, but believe me, that is quite unusual because we always have wind this time of year. I like to make sure that I have at least 2 layers of newspaper, and although you can lay it out wider, my biggest concern is to put it right down the middle where we're going to be walking the most. After you've laid all the straw, water the entire area. This will help set the straw so it doesn't blow away. And in fact, especially if you use cardboard, wet the walkway down every day for a few days in a row until the straw seats to the cardboard to prevent any further chances of sliding when you're walking on it. I'll share updates on how the cardboard works while we're going through the season. We've gone from the fall ground preparation that'll soon look like this, so when you're walking under your corn stalks, your feet stay dry. Are you planting this year? If you're just starting, I'd love to hear your biggest questions or your biggest wins. And if you have suggestions on walkway ground cover that you've used, or you have any other questions, comments, or suggestions, just let me know. And thank you for joining me for another episode of In the Garden with Margie.